through you, through the rest of the members, I know in caucus I talk a little in length of how difficult this decision is for me and how important it is that when I made my decision on where I would be on this bill, that I had to stand up and speak in support of Amendment 474, filed by the gentleman of Lynn. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, my mentor, when I first came in, for ushering this while he was part of this body. Joe Boncory. I want to thank Madam Leader. I want to thank Senate President. I want to thank all of you. In 2001, I was 17. I was captain of the football team. I was junior assistant scoutmaster. I was almost an Eagle Scout. I went to Young Marines. I was team leader. I was an Explorer Scout. I come from a family that my father served this country for over 20 years, combat veteran. My mother's a veteran. My grandparents served in my family have served in every single major conflict. And at 17 years old, as captain of the football team, I was charged with a possession with intent in a school zone. Class D, marijuana. The prohibition is over now. But I'm going to talk a little bit about, before I get into my statistics, of why was I charged as an adult for marijuana? Why did I have to? We just wanted to chill. We just wanted to get away from my boy getting murdered. We just wanted to just pass the time because dealing with my dad's PTSD was crazy. Growing up in the north end of Springfield, one of the most poorest districts in Massachusetts, which I'm proud that I was the ward counselor there, that I'm proud to be the first Boricua ever to step foot in this chamber. And every time I walk through the halls, I got to look at a painting that says, the invasion of Puerto Rico. My family came here in the 1950s to make a life for themselves. And as Latinos, we're not white enough, and we're not black enough. We're like an invisible community. And sometimes I tried to figure out, again, going back to why, at 17 years old, with a possession with intent in a school zone, did I get charged as an adult. But at that moment in time and how my community is built and set up, you should not have had it on you. It was 10 tray bags, $30 worth of weed. Granted, like everybody says, you gotta pull up by your bootstraps, figure it out. I got suspended for 30 days. My principal knew exactly that, come from a good family, said, if you finish the violence prevention programs and if you finish all your schoolwork and go through EAP, you can come back. Usually it takes kids 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, depending on who the kid is. I was so determined off of the mistake that I had made, because I'm accountable to my actions, right? At 17 years old, I was raised. So during that process, it took me a week to get into EAP because, Hampden County is the most arrested county in this Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're the poorest county in the state of Massachusetts, most impoverished county in the state of Massachusetts. But hell, Law enforcement is the biggest business in Hampden County. My mom was a police commissioner. There's no shade on law enforcement. I think that individuals that break the law need to be held accountable, especially when it comes to violent crimes. But I didn't do anything violent, right? So now, it takes me a week to get into EAP. And I was so determined because I just wanted a second chance. And I thought if I proved myself at EAP, I could get back to school and everything's gonna be all right. And at the time, I didn't understand what being charged as an adult felt like, or what it was, or what were the consequences, right? It was September. It was the beginning of senior year. I'm a senior. I'm supposed to have the best time of my life. I was just gonna turn 18. And before I could even get my license, because, you know, there's the requirement, I lost my license before I could even get it or get a permit. That was one of the consequences after I had to cop out. Because after a year, you know, they strung me along through the justice system, come back for another day, come back for another day. I'm out on bail, right? And then after being a year, when I copped out, they gave me 2 years probation. After the fact, when I was 17, they didn't have a license. Then I figured out, well, I ended up coming back from EAP in a week, not 30 days. You give a kid a second chance. And I can only use my personal story because this is the story that has got me here and got me into this room under the dome. I went to EAP and I did all my schoolwork for the whole semester in 1 week. I challenged the violence prevention program. Even though I didn't commit a violent crime, they made me do it. I have to comply. That's part of the requirements. Those are part of the regulations, part of the policies that somebody that don't look like me made. I did, and I challenged that, and I finished it on Friday. I got arrested on a Monday. 2 weeks later, I was back in school on another Monday. And then I had teachers protesting that they didn't want to educate me because they made me into this person that got caught in a school zone, and I'm a bad person. After all the good that I did, that one mistake, be careful with him. In my own community, be careful with Gomez's son. Inevitably, I came back and I said, you don't have to worry about educating me. I'm not even going to fail off the team. Here's all my schoolwork. And I smiled and I sat down and I helped other kids and I helped other people, and I've used this to say that. And then when I graduated and I thought that it was over, then after I copped out, I figured out and I learned that a possession with intent, all of a sudden, you can get caught with any other drug, but marijuana for some reason on the federal level, I didn't qualify for financial aid. So any school or any place that I was going to go to further my education in football, I lost all of that. I lost it all. There wasn't even, the financial aid package didn't come in. For a possession, it's 1 year. For a possession with intent, it's 2 years. Without financial aid. I come from a household of 9 brothers and sisters. We're back to back to back. My sister and me graduated at the same time. Then decisions had to get made. My parents grew up working in nonprofit. You know, you don't make a lot of money working in the community doing nonprofit. So I ended up saying, Mom, I don't have to go to school at this moment. I'll go to the community college. And I couldn't find a job, right? I was out on bail. I was a problem. I was a statistic all of a sudden. After all the good that I've done and everything that I've accomplished. But then, the YMCA gave me a shot and said, you know what? You can work here with the kids, but you can't be alone with the kids. And my first job was, I was a lifeguard working for the city of Springfield. I saved kids every single day, and all of a sudden, just one mistake, I can't be alone with these kids. So I went through my probation, and I ended up going to school and dealing with the struggles of understanding. Growing up, I didn't understand what it was not to have food or not to dealing with homelessness until I became a man. And when I became an adult and I started having my own children, and then my record ended up hindering me from finding better employment, trying to get on Section 8, trying to get an MRVP, and then from there, I had to figure out how to tell my kids that, I can't stay with you because you got to stay in this shelter because Dad did something when he was 17 years old, and I'm 26, 27 years old. And then I was introduced to something called the Justice Reinvestment Act from an organization called Neighbor to Neighbor. That bill saved my life. If I told you 10 years ago I would have been here, or if maybe 10 years ago if I didn't do this, if anybody in this room would know me or ever want to talk to me. Because when I take off this suit, everybody knows I don't dress like this. I come in here dressed like who I am, and I bring my full self every single time, every single conversation, and I still live in the same street that I grew up on because I will never move away, because there's kids, there's children, that all of us, when we legislate and when we talk about helping people, in every single instance, I have a story. I have a real deep story about why it's important to save kids, especially, and we're talking about a year. Back when I was 17, I wish we were having this conversation then, because maybe the opportunities could have been a lot more greater for me. Things could have been a lot different for me, and I know people have choices, kids have choices. But at the same time, when the right person or the right people aren't in front of you, or the opportunities become so stressful after you get one door slapped in front of you, another door slapped in front of you, and then you always feel like you're always fighting for something. Everything that I have because of this charge, I fought for. I fight every day just to get here. Shoot, 2022, I thought I was gonna get my get back, right? Cannabis bill. We passed the possession with intent to expunge. Never did I want to expunge my record because I thought it was a part of me. I tried to get certain clearances, possession with intent, even though it's just a misdemeanor now here in the state of Massachusetts. Federally, it's still, because it's not declassified as a felony. So, on the federal guidelines, I'm a senator with a felony. Go figure. Because of something that I did at 17, a mistake. So now, I go through the process. I've been waiting over 10 months, and I'm the one that amended that law. 10 months. 10 months. I've been waiting 10 months to fully go through the process of my expungement. The judge signed it in September 10th. I'm sitting here telling you there's problems. Raising the age isn't one of them. We set up these laws and we set up these fixes. But who's holding the people accountable that are supposed to be doing this work? Like myself, oftentimes they have to cop out to a plea bargain, because obviously no 17-year-old belongs incarcerated for marijuana or for a non-violent crime. The ones that are talking about these violent crimes, we need to stop the narrative of what's fact and what's fiction. We need to start telling the truth and not what's going to get us elected. I'm standing here as a person that I know that I'm going to catch the punches when I get home. And that's okay, because my narrative and my story and my truth is what got me here at C18. Our current system is sending older teens into the adult system and making things worse. When you send an individual and you go to school and you send him and he's surrounded by chefs, right? When he comes out of that school, he's going to be a hell of a cook, right? A young person absorbs, he's a sponge. You send them to become, excuse me, you send them to aeronautical school. He's going to come out knowing about airplanes. You send a young kid into an adult situation with still an adolescent mind, regardless of the time frame of the crime, he's gonna come back what? A bigger and a better criminal. You could salvage so much with some of these young people. And we're not talking about people after the fact that create habitual offenses when it comes to violent crime. There's kids that go to jail for being at the wrong place at the wrong time. One of my employees that worked for me was at the wrong place at the wrong time at 16 years old and could have went to jail for life. And you know what he's doing? He's doing the people's work with me. Because you know what? In my office and this district and in this body, we give chances. More young people can be held accountable. Most young people, can be held accountable and be on track for rehabilitation, and particularly with developmentally appropriate interventions. However, exposure to toxic environment like adult jails and prisons can actually increase offending. The juvenile system typically imposes more supervision and intensive programming while in confinement, and the adult criminal justice system, educational, counseling, and independent living programming are difficult to, near impossible to access on the adult side, especially for women. And usually, some women get incarcerated because they're hanging with the person that they love. So the accessory to such crime that was not committed, being at the wrong place at the wrong time, is another problem that we need to talk about. The adult system yields predictably worse outcomes for young adults. The legislation does not change the statutes pertaining to the prosecution and sentencing of youth charged with the most serious offenses, first and second degree murder, who are automatically tried and sentenced in adult superior court. I speak boldly and proud to say that because that's the narrative that we're gonna be dispelling here today in this, especially to the individuals that have been texting me about, what about this and what about this? Let's educate. Let's talk about it before we start spinning misinformation. Science tells us to trust that the brain of an 18 to 20-year-old is still developing, making these emerging adults more susceptible to peer pressure, impulsive decisions, and reward-seeking behavior, all which can lead to the poor decision-making. What do you tell a 19-year-old that makes a mistake? A kid who obviously has all these hopes and these dreams and these things moving forward to go to college. This amendment would ensure that they receive the age-appropriate rehabilitative programming necessary to help them mature into healthy, well-adjusted adults and to achieve the hopes and dreams they set forth prior to incarceration. And the question was asked, how much money would this cost? And I remember because I advocated like a madman when it came to the Justice Reinvestment Act, and we kind of had a number in 2017, I think if I'm right, Senator Eldridge, it cost more to incarcerate than to educate. We can send these kids to our state school for a year on what it costs to put them in the penitentiary or in county. That's like $40,000 a year to lock them up. Am I correct? I think I am. This amendment would ensure, let me jump forward, I apologize. This will prevent a long-term criminal justice system involvement by ensuring that these young people are held accountable while at the same time engaging in treatment, education, and vocational training that are effective for this age group. Again, I want to thank the gentleman from Lynn. I want to thank all of you for listening to me and letting me put all my business on Front Street and understanding that, you know, we can't save every single person But if you saved one, he could be right here standing in front of you, an honorable man, an honorable woman, and a person that can go back home and motivate and change the lives of 100 others. Thank you so much, Mr. President.